ואפילו בהסתרה, שבתוך ההסתרה, ודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. ואפילו בהסתרה, שבתוך ההסתרה, ודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עלינו, אני עומד. גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עלינו, אני עומד. Even in the hidden places, within the hidden places, the most hidden place, certainly the Holy Blessed One is there. Behind all the difficult things that befall us, the divine voice says, I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. The rabbis ask, where is the book of Esther hinted at in the Torah? Because if the Torah contains all wisdom, there must be some reference to this important story. They find it in the words, Ve'anochi haster astir panai, and I will surely hide my face, which is what God says in the book of Deuteronomy. You can hear it, haster, to hide, and Esther are both phonetically and grammatically similar. This is also part of the reason why we hide our faces and wear masks on Purim. It's also referencing the fact that God's name does not appear anywhere in the Megillah. God is hidden in the story. The Jews of Shushan, Mordechai and Esther, often feel disconnected and estranged from God. As we've just announced the month of Adar, that will be here next week, which is associated with joy and connected with celebrating the happy holiday of Purim, there's also another quality of this time, which is that aspect of Esther, hastara, hiddenness, and disconnection, which I know is true in my heart this Shabbat. Rabbi Nachman's words in the song that I opened with reference the message of the Megillah. Even when things feel hopeless, when the Jewish community is under threat, God says, I'm there with you. It's always a welcome reminder in these dreary winter months, and it feels resonant now in this time of brokenness, of children being stolen and killed and returned in coffins, in the midst of all this pain that we've been experiencing these past more than 500 days. Our hearts shatter and we cry out, have we been left alone? In this week's Parsha, Moses reads out Sefer HaBrit, a book of sacred agreement, a covenant of the people. Our ancestors respond to the reading of this book of the covenant with the words of affirmation, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. Many generations of commentators note that the order of this affirmation seems odd. Shouldn't we first listen and then do? The 18th century Hasidic master, the Me'or Enaim, explains that this is a teaching about spiritual life. Our spiritual life, our emotional interiority is always shifting, and there is no real true sense of this needs to or this should happen first. Sometimes we're in a state where we're just so low that we only have the strength to say, Na'aseh, e'eseh, I'll do it. And that might take all of our strength. I'll go on even when I don't fully understand, when I don't fully hear all the pieces. That is sometimes the only starting place we have. It's the place of hiddenness and estrangement. But we are also, other times, in the place of nishma, when we can really hear, with our fullness of being, what is needed from us, when we feel connected to our purpose, to our people, to God. As my friend and colleague, Rabbi Jericho Vincent, writes, there is no permanent emotional state. There is no permanent emotional state. Our feelings shift and flow. This is an idea that the mystics often refer to with the phrase of ratzo v'shov. The life force within us ebbs and flows. These words, ratzo v'shov, are from Ezekiel's vision of the chariot, where the prophet sees divine beings going ratzo v'shov, running and returning. And it also reminds me of the image in Jacob's ladder with the angels going up and down. And there's a way in which these eternal images are also reminding us of what's going on inside of us, the ebbing and flowing of our emotions and our ability to connect. In our despondency, we feel the life force flowing out of us as we mourn the death of Ariel and Kfir and Shiri Bibas and Oded Lifshitz and all the other hostages and innocent people who have so unjustly been murdered and lost to us. I know that many of us have been at vigils and gatherings recently, mourning together, and we're here mourning together today. And maybe we also feel angry. I know that I feel more than angry, learning about what was supposed to be Shiri's remains and then were not. And I encourage us to hold the anger with tenderness, even if it's just anger. I think behind the anger is disconnection and estrangement from that just and beautiful world that we ought to be living in. It's that place of God's hiddenness and our despair. It's the ratzo, the leaving energy of falling apart. In the Me'or Enayim's understanding, it's from this place that our ancestors say, na'aseh. We will do, we will keep going. This persistence is by itself deep and important work. To not fall into despair, but to keep going, to keep doing, until we can hear nishma, that shov energy, coming back, helping to build that just and compassionate world that we ought to be living in. The Me'or Enayim believes that there are insights that we can glean from being in this hard place, that we might be able to feel God, even though it feels distant, to feel God standing with us amidst the despair, the cruelty, and the violence. What gives us hope? Tikva. What allows us to have emunah, to have faith? Perhaps there is some measure of tikva and emunah in the release today of the 6 hostages, and God willing, many more to come. Maybe it's in the feeling of gratitude and blessing in our own lives, of being together here today. The chesed, the kindness that we receive and we give. We say both na'aseh v'nishma. We will keep going through, and we will find the connection that we need to keep going. Ve'afilu b'hastara, even in the hiddenness, when we feel far from what we need. We have the Brit to return to, right? The Sefer HaBrit that Moshe read at the beginning, that evokes this. Our covenant, our commitment, our Torah, our traditions that guide us. One of the traditions, symbols connected with Brit, that we had the Sefer HaBrit, but our tradition also says that salt is a symbol of Brit. There's many symbols of Brit, right? The rainbow in the story of Noah is a symbol of the Brit, as some of us beautifully have on our talitot. The Brit we also know as bris, the circumcision, is a sign of the connection and commitment. But salt is one of the many biblical ot brits, the signs of the covenant. It's part of the sacrifices, and that carries over into the salt that we eat with the challah on our Shabbat and holiday tables. The rabbis in the Talmud say, Ne'emar brit b'melach V'ne'emar brit b'yisurin. Covenant is mentioned in connection with salt, and covenant is mentioned in connection with suffering. Right? Salt is also in this realm of a sign or symbol of suffering. Lot's wife, who turned back when she saw destruction, was turned into a pillar of salt. Right? She was so full of suffering, seeing the destruction that immobilized her. But another image is Miriam, whose name means Maryam. Right? That means bitter waters, but salty waters, I think, which represents salt, right? That suffering that's held with water. And water is often compared to Torah. Right? When we have suffering, but the sense of commitment and being together in Torah, in community, in learning. Right? Torah, I understand in this realm as the context of talking and learning and growing together, the Torah shebe'al peh that exists for us as Jews in community, that leads us to Mei HaYeshua, the waters of redemption that Miriam, the prophetess, brings us to. And we know, just from eating salt, it makes us thirsty. Right? It's a symbol of longing. As Rabbi Nachman describes it, he calls it tzima'on hanefesh. Salt represents the thirst of our souls, the yearning in our hearts, our connections and hopes, our impermanent emotional states that we flow through are all, in my experience, wrapped up in this feeling, this sense of longing. This is na'aseh v'nishma, the ratzon v'shov, the feeling of yearning and returning. This is our Jewish way. Na'aseh, acting when we have to, when it's hard. Nishma, listening with brit, commitment and longing for a better, more just, connected, more redeemed world. May we keep supporting and standing together alongside each other with open ears, with open arms, with yearning souls, saying together with God, Ani omed, I'm standing here with you.